Everybody, welcome to the show. Around the nation right here, QRT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome. Got a great show for you guys today. Lots of fun topics. We got Jeffrey Epstein. We've got the House finally taking action on the minimum wage. So we'll talk about that. We also have new details on Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels. That court case has just finished, and we've got a buttload of documents that have been released. I'll talk about some of that. Then, of course, we do have the Trump rally against Representative Ilhan Omar and her response. Then we have Meghan McCain doing what Meghan McCain does best, make things about herself. So that's fun. And then, of course, Donald Trump has a little bit of an ironic response where he talks about how if you don't want to serve your country, you should leave. Fun. Okay, so we'll talk about that. And, you know, if we have any time that's left over, there are other stories, of course, always more stories to go to, including nuclear power. So we'll talk about that stuff. All right. So now, before I get into the stories, I put out the call yesterday for patrons, right? And there was a great response. So a few patrons signed up yesterday. A few new people to signed up to support the channel, and that's good. That's good. That helps us get towards our goal. We're still not quite there. So if you're on the fence and you're thinking, "Oh, I don't know, man," you know, maybe not. I don't know. $3. It's like a cup of coffee. So, and if you can't afford it, again, don't worry about it, and don't give more than you're able to. All right. So, that said, thank you so much for those who signed up. In fact, I want to read off some of the new patrons here. We have Richard Wyatt, Nicole Wesley, Robert Portia. Wow. Chad Kubo, Jocelyn Glee, Blue Owl Visions, and I think those are the new ones for the day. We also have a couple of channel members, Ananda Mide, I hopefully said that right, and Antonio MC. So thank you for signing up. Those are not patrons. Those are actually channel members that you can do through YouTube. That also goes to help the show. All right. That said, let's move in. Let's get to the first story. Let's talk about Epstein and the... actually, you know what? It's a good question here. So I just noticed somebody asking how close we are to 10,000 subscribers or or 10,000 likes on Facebook. We're at about 5,000. I think. Hold on. We're not there. Let's just say that. So we need a lot more likes on Facebook. We're just about over 5,000. And so, you know, that's, it's growing, but it is kind of sad that my top fan, because, you know, Facebook does the whole top fan badge thing. It's kind of sad when your top fan is somebody who hates progressives and trolls you all the time. So, kind of sad. Please like our Facebook page so we can at least give some top fans to people who actually like the show. Okay, now let's get in. Okay. So there's new information in the legal troubles for Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, of course, has been accused of sex trafficking, and that's among other things. Before, of course, he had been caught, you know, with basically minors. So, you know, I mean, this guy's he's a pretty gross guy. We've talked about him in previous videos. And now a judge has finally decided that as of right now, he is too much of a flight risk. So now the federal judge, this is Judge Richard M. Berman, sided with prosecutors who argued that the financier and accused sex trafficker posed a flight risk because of his, of course, wealth. In fact, Berman said that prosecutors showed a, quote, clear and convincing evidence that Epstein was a giant flight risk. So now that's important here. Let me try that again. I'm sorry. I messed that up. Okay. So let's start that again, this time with our graphics. It's one of those days. So a New York federal judge on Thursday ordered Jeffrey Epstein held without bail. So now this is Judge Richard M. Berman, and he basically sided with prosecutors who argued that the wealthy financier accused of sex trafficking posed a gigantic flight risk. Berman said just minutes after the pretrial proceeding, the government application for continued remand is hereby granted. The defense had proposed a $77 million bail package with Epstein's private jet and Manhattan mansion as collateral. However, Berman said, quote, I doubt any bail package can overcome any danger to the community. Damn. So now, again, Epstein now being held without possibility of bail and getting out because, again, they're afraid that he's going to use this massive amount of wealth and resources to basically skip out of the country. And as you're going to see, that, there is really good reason to think that he would do exactly that. So now, Berman said that agents had unearthed a pile of cash. And I'm sorry, this is the prosecutors that said that agents unearthed a pile of cash, diamonds, and a passport from a foreign country in a safe belonging to Epstein. So they raided his home. They found all this stuff. Diamonds. Now, prosecutors also said that on Wednesday that Epstein used a foreign passport with a fake name to enter several countries in the 1980s, including the United Kingdom, Spain, and even Saudi Arabia. Now, that document was found inside a safe along with $70,000 in cash and 48 loose diamonds. Who carries around 48 loose diamonds or any amount of loose diamonds? That's insane. That's Bond villain level of carrying around diamonds. I mean, but again, that just shows you how wealthy and how much resources this guy has. And if he's got a fake passport with a fake name, oh boy, here we go. This is somebody that could easily fly off to one of these countries and avoid justice. And so thankfully the judge is like, no, that's not going to happen under my watch. No, you're going to stay in prison because you belong in prison. And this time it's an actual prison, and not in there for 8 hours a day, 1 day a week, which was the previous, of course, sentence that he had to serve. Now, more details about the questionable travel document, as they call it. It contained a photo of Epstein with a different name and listed his place of residence as Saudi Arabia. In fact, the passport contains numerous ingress and egress stamps, including stamps that reflect the use of the passport to enter France, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia back in the 1980s. So now Epstein's lawyers are saying, oh, no, that's not weird at all. No, he had to do that. He had to have a fake name and everything and a fake residence put on his passport because he's Jewish. In fact, Epstein's lawyers argued that he obtained the Austrian passport in 1982 for personal protection to be presented to potential kidnappers, hijackers, or terrorists. Oh, see, he had to. No, he wasn't doing anything shady. He just had to have it for personal protection because he's super wealthy and people would try to kidnap him. And also because he's Jewish. In fact, the lawyers said that Epstein's Jewish faith and substantial wealth made him a target while traveling in the Middle East. Quote, some Jewish Americans were formally advised at the time to carry identification bearing a non-Jewish name when traveling internationally in case of hijacking, Epstein's lawyers wrote in a letter to Judge Berman on Thursday. Okay, look, okay. So I get that anti-Semitic attacks and things are nothing to sneeze at, right? So that is a legitimate worry. So that alone, you could think, okay, look, there's a case to be made that, yes, you could do that. But then you look at what else is in the safe, $70,000, 48 loose diamonds that you could get a lot of money from and live very comfortably in another country. And you think, okay, this guy, no, we're not going to risk it. We're not going to risk it. We got to keep this guy locked up because he would definitely get out of here. Now, Epstein's attorneys also argued the government provided no evidence that he ever used the passport, despite the ingress and egress points. They said any stamps on the questionable passport were obtained by a previous user. What? Oh, is that how that works? Oh, so you just get a passport from somebody else that has all those stickers from other countries. That's how. So you get when you go and get a passport, you always get a used passport. It's like a hand-me-down. That's bull crap. Complete and utter crap. I mean, that's a real argument? Really? In fact, the passport stamps, they argue, predating his receipt of the document, do not reflect Mr. Epstein's entries or exits. His expired U.S. passport, seized by the government in its possession, would verify his true travel. So the government, this judge, says, no. All the stuff, all the evidence that we have seized from Epstein's home shows that he would be a monumental flight risk. Now, these lawyers are saying, well, the same government or the same documents that you have that were taken by you guys, the government. Well, I mean, those happen to prove that he's not a flight risk and that he wouldn't just jet set off to Saudi Arabia with his fake passport. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. But look, good. Judge Berman made obviously the right decision, in my opinion. On this guy is, look, at the very least, an incredibly gross, disgusting predator, right? And so he needs to be held accountable for what he's done. And again, going back to what they charged him with before and his ridiculous sentence that he ended up serving thanks to Alexander Acosta. And, of course, the law firm, which, by the way, William Barr was a member of. He ended up getting this sweetheart deal, and part of that was prostitution charges, right? They literally took and labeled girls, 14-year-old girls, children, as prostitutes in order to allow him to get that sweetheart deal where, again, he spent, 8 hours a day in prison. 16 hours he could go out and do whatever he wants. Go out and work and live wherever, and then he just basically go back to jail to sleep. I mean, come on. Nobody else would ever get that kind of deal. But Epstein is wealthy and very powerful and very influential in circles of power. And so he was able to do that. Thankfully, though, so far, it's looking like the world cannot abide by someone like that being free. And so, look, hopefully, I know these are alleged crimes and things that he's being charged with now, but come on. Looking at the history, looking at, again, there are new allegations. A 14-year-old, a 16-year-old also came out to say, look, I was raped by Jeffrey Epstein. And so you've got all these new cases coming out. This guy's done. And so, in my opinion, and all this new evidence and this court ruling against him, it shows that they know it and that Epstein knows it. So hopefully we can get justice for these victims of his trafficking and molestation, and because that justice is long, long overdue. Okay. All right, so let's get to more. Let's get to microcode, right? So let me find the correct sidebar here. Nope. Yep. All right, here we go. No more documents have dropped as a result of the I can't talk today. I'm telling you guys, can't talk today. More documents have dropped as a result of the investigation into Donald Trump's efforts to silence Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Now, this is according to an article written by the Daily Beast. Federal prosecutors have released hundreds of pages of documents detailing how the president's former fixer, Cohen, illegally paid hush money to Stormy Daniels and former Playboy model Karen McDougal. Now, both of them were prepared to say before Election Day that Donald Trump had an affair with them. Now, that you would think at the time would have been disastrous for Donald Trump's campaign. But as we've learned now, it wouldn't have made any sort of difference. Again, you had just the numerous scandals. Donald Trump just got credibly accused of rape not more than a week ago. So, and his followers, they're still with him. So, again, this wouldn't have made a difference. But the problem here, of course, is that it broke campaign finance law. So now, the Beast writes that a federal judge had ordered the documents to be released after Manhattan federal prosecutors told courts that it closed its investigation into the Trump organization over the hush money payouts. Now, Cohen was an executive at the company and had also pled guilty in 2018 to campaign finance violations in connection with the payout. So it was a campaign finance violation. In fact, Cohen is in serving prison time, but Donald Trump has not so far. Very interesting, and he probably never will, because right now we have a Justice Department that refuses to hold the president accountable for any sort of criminality. But anyway, now let me give you a timeline here about basically this entire case, of what we know thanks to the investigation and these newly released documents. Now in 2016, in October, Daniels' attorney, Keith Davidson, had contacted Cohen and AMI, that's the company owned by David Pecker that runs the National Enquirer, about the allegations of an affair with Donald Trump. The next day, Donald Trump's close personal assistant, Hope Hicks, who knew about this as well, possibly lied under oath, called Michael Cohen, and that's what these FBI documents allege, that Hope Hicks had lied under oath about this. Now, Hicks, like I said, called and even texted Cohen. Funny enough, one of her texts, and this was coming after the Access Hollywood tape, is that, oh my God, just pray that it goes away. Pray this whole thing goes away. So you're literally going to ask God to, take away these allegations that your, boss is a horrible person? Not going to happen. Because for one, I don't believe there is a God. And number two, he's a horrible person regardless. And there are plenty of other horrible things that he has done. But anyway, so now, seconds later, after Hope Hicks had called Cohen, guess who jumped into the conversation? Not president at the time, but candidate Donald Trump. Trump joined the call, and they spoke for approximately 4 minutes. What did they talk about? It's pretty clear that they probably talked about Stormy Daniels. Now, as FBI agents had noted, it was the first time Cohen had spoken to Hicks in weeks, and the first time he and Trump had spoken in months, a sign of how explosive the campaign viewed the possible Daniels story. After a short call between Cohen and Hicks, Cohen phoned AMI chairman David Pecker, longtime friend of Trump and owner of the National Enquirer. Cohen then called Dylan Howard, AMI's chief content officer and Pecker's lieutenant. Cohen, Pecker, and Trump then spoke together for nearly 8 minutes. So now this is according to the documents, this is according to the FBI, right? So all this is documented. Trump was speaking with all these people, Hope Hicks, Michael Cohen, David Pecker, all of them getting together. Gee, I wonder what they talked about. Yeah, right. Okay. Now, after another call with Cohen, Howard sent him a text message, quote, "Keith will do it. Let's convene tomorrow." Now, again, Keith is Keith Davidson, which is, again, Stormy Daniels' attorney. So I'm assuming those conversations had everything to do with making this settlement. And by the way, the following day, Cohen created a non-disclosure agreement with Davidson and Stormy Daniels, using pseudonyms in the agreement for them and for Donald Trump. It subject all parties to complete silence. By the end of the month, after threats by Davidson that Cohen was taking too long to pay, Cohen wired $130,000 to Davidson and ended up sealing the deal. Now, for McDougal, Cohen had previously arranged for AMI to buy the life rights of Karen McDougal in her story, who pitched the Inquirer on a story about her alleged affair with Donald Trump. AMI bought McDougal's story for about $150,000 at Cohen's urging, according to prosecutors. Now, instead of publishing her story, as we all know, AMI basically sat on it. They did what was called catch and kill. And so they bought the story, and then they sat on it and said, well, this is never going to see the light of day. Now, they've done that before with other celebrity stories. And so in this case, Donald Trump, big friend of David Pecker and AMI, they decided, well, we're going to help their political career by making sure we sit on the story. So now Donald Trump's role in this, court papers filed in the Cohen case showed that Trump, referred to as Individual 1, directed the hush money scheme to Stormy Daniels. Cohen said in his guilty plea that he had also made the hush money payments in coordination at the direction of Donald Trump. And in subsequent testimony before the House Oversight Committee, Cohen produced checks from the Trump Organization signed by Donald Trump in August of 2017 when he was in the White House to reimburse Cohen for the payments. So now Cohen paid Stormy Daniels off back in 2016. It took a long time for Donald Trump to pay him back. Now, wait a minute. If you were a billionaire, if you're somebody who is as wealthy as President Trump, then why would you need to take about a year to pay off Michael Cohen, who paid out of his own money to cover up for Trump's mistakes, his wandering penis? I mean, think about that for a while, right? Not that anybody wants to think about anything related to Donald Trump's penis. That said, okay, now, in December of 2018, the New York Times had reported that Cohen had told federal prosecutors that Trump Organization Chief Financial Officer Alan Weisselberg had also helped out in this hush money scheme. Now, the story reportedly prompted prosecutors to take a bigger look at Weisselberg, who had received limited immunity to testify before a grand jury. Cohen told a similar story when he testified before the House Oversight Committee. He told lawmakers that Trump directed him and Weisselberg to figure out how to pay her the $130,000 in hush money when Daniels' attorney first threatened to tell the press of their 2006 affair. And now, again, that's going back to, what was it, Keith Davidson, right? So now Davidson made this agreement with Cohen, again, for $130,000. And then Davidson's like, you haven't paid up. We've kept our end of the bargain. You guys haven't given us any money yet. And so, we're sitting here, we're waiting, we're being patient. But if you don't pay us, then we're going to go forward. We're going to go right to the press for that story. So that prompted, of course, Cohen to basically pay out of his own pocket. So now, let me go here. Cohen claimed that Weisselberg said he couldn't use any of his own money to pay Daniels. And with the payment deadline looming, Cohen said the two agreed that Cohen would pay out of his own personal funds. So now Weisselberg also allegedly played a role in helping reimburse Cohen for those payments. And so now Weisselberg is also, according to court documents, known as Executive 1, right? Now, Executive 1, according to charges filed against Cohen in the Southern District of New York last year, first received Cohen's request that the Trump Organization reimburse him for a hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Weisselberg then forwarded the request to another Trump Organization executive with instructions to pay the invoice as a retainer for legal services. So again, that's part of the scam. That's part of a way to disguise this payment to Cohen, or else it would look rather, suspicious. Why are you wiring $130,000 to Michael Cohen? Oh, okay. You know what? He was a lawyer. He's legal fees. He's doing legal work for the Trump Organization. That's what he's doing. So he pays $130,000 to bury the story. Cohen does. Then apparently, according to the organization, does legal work to the tune of, miraculously, golly gee, $130,000. Now, the thing is, according to prosecutors, in these documents, there was no such retainer agreement between Cohen and the Trump organization, and Cohen had never performed legal work for the company during that time. It is a complete lie. And that's why, of course, we have Cohen that pled guilty to campaign finance charges. That money was a campaign contribution given to Donald Trump. And of course, the reason that's illegal is that you can't just give unlimited campaign contributions, unless, of course, you're a super PAC, 5014C. But look, the Trump organization is not all that smart, right? Donald Trump is not all that smart. They thought they could hide this because I guess before they could get, they'd get away with it. Now, Trump knew this was going on. He ordered those payments. He knew he was violating the law. And he also knew that covering up that story was a political move to help him secure the election because he thought, oh man, that actually might look really bad. So that's where we're at today, right? So now these documents are out. The case is over, right? So now the question is anybody going to be held accountable for it other than Michael Cohen? Is there anything that the Southern District of New York can actually do against the sitting president? I mean, right now, the Justice Department won't do anything against Donald Trump. We know that for certain. William Barr can attest to that. The whole appointment of William Barr is basically to have someone there in the Justice Department that will defend Donald Trump against anything. Now, we also know that Nancy Pelosi is not going to do anything against Donald Trump. Why? She refuses to impeach no matter what. Yes, she continues these investigations, but to what end? To what end? If you're not finding... So if you're trying to find his criminality, and there is probably plenty of criminality in the Trump organization. In fact, we've already had, 10 counts of obstruction of justice within the Mueller report. And you also have these documents that clearly spell out Donald Trump taking a leading role in breaking campaign finance law, for which one person has already been sentenced to prison for. We know he has a role. There's already enough criminality for Nancy Pelosi, and yet she's like, no, he's going to self-impeach. That's about as dumb as saying, on undocumented immigrants, they're going to self-deport. It's ridiculous. So, look, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen, all right? So we're going to have to see. I'm deeply, deeply cynical about this, but here's more and more proof that Donald Trump is a complete criminal. We have a criminal in the White House, and we have a feckless Democratic Party that refuses to do anything about it. Our country is being run by crooks, and this is just more evidence of it. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a positive story, right? That's fantastic. All right, let's move on. Let's do actually good news. Sort of. The House finally passed legislation to increase the minimum wage. Now, in a party line vote, 231 to 199, you had Democrats, the Democratic-controlled House, pass a living wage bill. Now, the legislation is a compromise between centrist Democrats and more progressive members who had debated how large the hike should be. Now, $15 an hour, that is basically the minimum, the living minimum that you can live on in most of the country without having to go on federal assistance. It's about $30,000 a year. That's not a lot of money. Now, some other points that they disagreed on is whether it would rise with the same level across the country, which I believe it should. It should be tied to inflation, and whether or not there should be flexibility. Now, progressives won the battle for enacting a wage hike to $15 an hour across the country, reports The Hill, while centrists succeeded in lengthening the time period for the extension from 5 to 6 years. The legislation also includes an amendment requiring that its economic impact be studied as the wage hike is phased in. I'm actually not opposed to that. I know that's a centrist measure, right? But, we need to have a study on if the minimum wage is, what's going to happen if we have the minimum wage. Well, we already kind of know what's going to happen. We can look at the cities that have already put in a living wage situation. And you can look at Seattle. You can look at California, right? L.A. I should say, and you can see San Francisco. So now the thing about it, some of those cities, of course, is the cost of living is so high already that this minimum wage not going to have as much of an impact as it would have in some places like the middle of Pennsylvania, Michigan, etc. Nonetheless, right? So now this comes after a Congressional Budget Office report that projected that a hike would lift about 1.3 million people out of poverty. Now, the report also warned that it's possible that you could lose 1.3 million jobs by 2024. Now, what's not being reported in the Hill is that 17 million people would also see a bump in their rate, in their pay rate. So you have 1.3 million people out of poverty, 17 million people see a raise, with, of course, those economic effects built in. Now, there's a possible cost of maybe 1.3, maybe probably less, right? Now, the reason I say maybe is not because I don't care about facts, right? No, I actually do care about facts. And so that's why there are numerous studies I want to point out that show that a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour would actually not have a huge impact on jobs. In fact, there's a recent one from Berkeley that found that there was no negative nor really all that big of a positive effect on on jobs when you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So they didn't see huge job gains, but they also didn't see the disastrous job losses that Republicans always warn about when you raise the minimum wage. Speaking of Republicans, Representative Michael Burgess made this argument during the debate that this legislation would raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, a 107% increase over the current rate of $7.25 an hour. So now the reason that he said that, right, is first he wants to point out, oh my God, look at that, 107%. That is an enormous hike. Oh my God, radical leftists, right? But also, he said this, quote, an increase of this magnitude could harm American businesses, same thing they say all the time, could harm American consumers. Weird, more people having money somehow ends up in consumers being hurt. Oh, you understand, they're going to pass the cost on to the consumer. Well, there have been other studies that have shown that after there have been, basically wage hikes in the minimum wage, that yes, some costs do increase, but it's spread out so much that it actually ends up being less than a few cents. So your hamburger is not going to go up to $10 an hour, $10 for a Big Mac. It's going to go up by maybe less than 10 cents. So now it also says that he says that it will certainly harm American workers. Maybe the ones that possibly lose their job, if that happens, which there's no evidence to prove that it does. Even the CBO report was super, super conservative. But it will hurt. It will help so many more people, right? And get this, Burgess also says, quote, it has the potential to leave nearly 4 million workers unemployed. 4 million. 4 million. Where did he get that number? Again, the CBO said it's a possibility that 1.3 million could lose their jobs. This guy's like, 1.3? No. We're going to say 4 million. So basically, oh, you're only going to help 1.3, but you're going to hurt 4 million. Oh, look at all that. And again, they ignore that 17 million people would see a definite raise in their wages. And again, there are economic benefits associated with that. But says, no, 4 million. I'm going to pull that on my butt. And look, it's probably some right-wing think tank that came up with that number. And that think tank probably funded by giant corporations. Well, let's be honest. But look, here's the thing, right? So now the conservative argument here is, look, we don't need a minimum wage. It can stay low. And what's going to happen is if you grow the economy organically and corporations are successful, then they're going to share their profits with the workers. Capitalism, right? When you have more at the top, it will trickle down to the rest of the workers and they will see increased wages. Now, here's the thing. We are in the middle of what economists call a booming economy, right? You have corporations posting record profits. They're doing incredibly well. Stock market's up, and yet, at the same time, wages have not risen. They remain fairly flat when you factor in inflation, right? So a couple of modest, tiny little bumps here and there when it comes to wages, but generally, they're pretty stagnant. Now, again, Republicans claim that, hey, look, when the wealthy and corporations do better, then everybody does better. Well, that's not true. That's not true. In fact, Burgess complains about the minimum wage increase being a whopping 107%. An increase of that magnitude. Oh my God, it's so huge. Well, let me give you a huge number. All right. Since 1978, CEO compensation has risen by more than 930%. You want to talk about 107% increase for the workers at the bottom, making minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, with starvation wage. Well, then why don't you look at the top and see that, 930%. Wow, that's pretty big for CEO compensation. I know what they'll say. Oh, but Jeff, they deserve that. They work for that. And so, look, you got to have high CEO compensation, or you're not going to attract top talent, right? Whereas these other jobs, nobody cares about those, right? Well, the workers do. And people who, go to these restaurants and, get served by people making minimum wage, they actually care. American people actually care. So, look, overall point is somebody is doing well in this economy and it's not workers. All those gains have gone to the top. And so a minimum wage increase is a way to kind of try to redress some of that balance, that imbalance. So now, of course, most Republicans voted against it. I think only 4 Republicans backed this legislation, which is kind of amazing. Four Republicans voted in favor of this, but 6 Democrats voted against it. Let me give you their names. Anthony Brinsky of New York, Joe Cunningham of South Carolina, Kendra Horn of Oklahoma, Ben McAdams of Utah, Kurt Schrader of Oregon, and I cannot say this person's name. Torres Small of New Mexico voted no. I'm sorry, I cannot say that word. I can't figure out how to pronounce that, so I'm not going to try. So now those 6 voted against raising the minimum wage, and I'd very much love to hear the reasons why. And the reason is, of course, look, if it's a good reason, like, hey, man, look, I don't know if my constituents would be in favor of this, or, maybe it's too conservative, right? Basically, what I'm saying is that if we don't like the answer to that, then you're probably going to get primaried. In fact, look, this is a slam dunk of legislation. I mean, a Hill Harris X poll taken back earlier this year found that 55% of registered voters said that they would support raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. 73% of Democrats and 53% of independents, they say raise the wage, $15 an hour. Now, Republicans, of course, Republicans are mainly against this, right? And they do not want to take out the legislation in the Senate. For me, I say get them on the record, right? They're against you making better wages. It's simply, they are. They're not in favor of you making, if you make minimum wage, making a better wage. They want you to rely on the generosity of your employer, who may not be very generous. So I say to Democrats, look, it's election season coming up. Run ads. Republicans, don't want you making a living wage. Republicans want giant corporations to keep funneling money to overpaid executives. Slam dunk. Hammer them on that issue. This is a very important economic issue because everybody knows it. Everybody sees that in their paychecks, right? And if you show people that Republicans are the party of the rich, well, you might actually have a chance at winning. So long as, of course, you're not the party of the rich. Are you Democrats? We'll see. Okay. So I'm going to take a quick break here. We'll come back. We've got Donald Trump going after Ilhan Omar and other stories related. So we'll do that. We'll come right back around the nation. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. We have just one comment that I want to read here. It's a super chat from... Hold. Where did I... All right, hold on a second here. Let me find it. It is from Jedi Mullet 77. Who says, the Koopa Troopa Mitch will do anything to please his corporate overlords and kill a minimum wage hike for working Americans. Yeah, which is why we need to run ads against them. Look, and to run progressives, by the way, against them and against these corporate Democrats who decide to also spike this wage legislation. And by the way, I like that. Koopa Troopa. So now, earlier I also saw a comment where, look, I know some of you guys are fatigued with some of the Trump stuff. I get it. I get it more than you ever would understand. But at the same time, there are important stories. He does have an outsized influence and impact on at least a third of the country. So it is important that we continue to hold him accountable and to, basically debunk and refute the BS he spews daily. And it's a tough job, let me tell you what. All right, so with that established, let's dive in. Let's get to the latest round of BS. All right. Trump supporters recently broke out into chants calling for Representative Ilhan Omar to be sent back to her own country. Watch.
Omar blamed the United States for the crisis in Venezuela. You think of that one. And she looks down with contempt on the hardworking Americans, saying that ignorance is pervasive in many parts of this country. And obviously and importantly, Omar has a history of launching vicious anti-Semitic screeds.
Okay, so, that's his speech. You can hear again the president attacking her, and the crowd say, "Send her back, send her back." So now I want to address, before I get to that part, I want to address some of the stuff that he said. Right? Ilhan Omar, launching vicious anti-Semitic attacks. Really? You want to talk about anti-Semitism, right? There's been a lot of instances where the president has said some pretty anti-Semitic things, including one of the speeches he gave to the Republican Jewish coalition. He said, quote, "You're not going to support me because I don't want your money. You want to control your politicians. That's fine." And that is, of course, going back to the anti-Semitic tropes of Jewish people buying politicians, running the world, etc. And again, it's not the first time he's talked about that. Globalists, whenever he talks about the globalist agenda, again, a lot of people interpret that as, and this is Trump's supporters, people like Steve Bannon, interpret that as going after the Jews, right? So again, you want to talk about anti-Semitism, right? Trump also tweeted out an image of Hillary Clinton's face superimposed on a backdrop of American dollars with a red six-pointed star in the corner. That type of star has been associated with Jews who call it the Star of David. Now, in the same time, right, Bernie Sanders has also been attacked by Politico, right? Constantly, Bernie Sanders is Jewish, and Politico, in one of their covers, put his face or a picture of him next to money trees. Anti-Semitic imagery, right? And so you got to call it out where you see it, right? Now, Ilhan Omar, well, she got in trouble for saying that AIPAC, the people that are, voting with AIPAC, well, it's because of the fact that AIPAC gives them money. So now a lot of people were like, "Oh man, wow, that's anti-Semitic imagery. You're falling into those tropes." But at the same time, AIPAC is a lobbying group. The whole purpose, and yes, they don't give money directly, from what I've learned, but their whole purpose, right, is to basically get financial support to politicians that support AIPAC's right-wing agenda. Now, again, AIPAC is a lobbying group on behalf of the right-wing Israeli government. And so that's not a representation of all Jewish people. That is a representation of people like Benjamin Netanyahu, people that are on the right side of the political spectrum in Israel, right? And so is it anti-Semitic to point that out? No, because it's a lobbying group. The whole point is to influence politicians if you're a lobbyist group. That's the definition of a lobbyist group, to curry influence. So now, Omar nonetheless got attacked by both Democrats and Republicans. And so, of course, this opened the door for President Trump. So now, back to Trump. He also basically voiced support for a conspiracy that George Soros was financing caravans of immigrants heading from Central America to the southwest border. That whole conspiracy, of course, is, George Soros is financing caravans to come replace Americans with other people. So it's that whole, white replacement fear, right? Oh, they're bringing in the Mexicans to replace Americans, to replace white people. Oh, they're bringing the Jews, like back in Charlottesville. The white supremacists, the holding the tiki torches, did the whole chant of "the Jews will not replace us, the Jews will not replace us." So that is hugely anti-Semitic. By the way, Donald Trump said there were very fine people on both sides of that, right? But anyway, when asked by a reporter about the George Soros thing, he said, quote, "I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of people say yes." Who's a lot of people? A lot of anti-Semitic people. That's who. Now, here's the thing about Donald Trump, and you're going to be shocked when I say this, right? He's not a stable genius. Maybe not shocked on that part. But look, Donald Trump is just smart enough to know that some people believe in the same ridiculous stereotypes that he does, and that they actually like it when he talks about those things. He's smart enough to know that. Now, is Donald Trump a racist? Yes. Is he anti-Semitic? Yes. Does he hate all black and Jewish people? No. See, here's the thing about him. He's very dumb. He's also very ignorant, right? He believes in a lot of these racist stereotypes. But, Jeff, what do you don't understand. There's a guy at his rally that he said was his African American. And he loves Diamond and Silk, and he loves Ben Carson. You know why? It's because Ben Carson and Diamond and Silk, they defend him. They're a nice shield for him. And also, he's the kind of the people, he's the kind of person that looks at someone like Ben Carson. Oh, he's a success. He was a brain surgeon. Wow. He obviously is not like those other black people. No, of course not. Because, he and I, he supports me, and he's smart, and he's rich. And, of course, I like people who are rich, right? And, again, they're a nice shield. Donald Trump used to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein all the time as well. Epstein, Jewish, right? But they had a lot of fun together. Now, of course, that Epstein's in trouble, maybe in trouble for real this time. I barely knew the guy. Barely knew the guy. Are you seeing a pattern, though, right? These people, he hangs out with these people because they're nice shields for him, and they do something for him. Donald Trump is a transactional person. Do something for him, he likes you. You fail him, then he does not like you. That is who he is, no more, no less. Now, Omar defended herself, right? So now, earlier at a news conference this week, she responded to Trump's attacks by saying, quote, "For him to condemn us and say that we're un-American for wanting to work hard to make this country the country we all deserve to live in, it's complete hypocrisy." And also responded to the chants, "You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still like air, I'll rise." And that is a poem from Maya Angelou. So now, one more last thing here. So after this kind of blew up in the media, right? Donald Trump comes out and says, "You know that chant? Wasn't happy about it." He said, quote, "I was not happy with it. I disagreed with it." And asked why he didn't stop the chant, Trump said, quote, "I think I did. I started speaking very quickly." Now, you guys just saw the video, right? You saw the video where after he was speaking, that chant started up, and he did basically nothing. Nothing at all. The man's a pathological liar, and he is literally gaslighting the entire country right in front of our faces. Got to get rid of him. Okay. Jesus, there's more to get to. All right. Nope. Let's go to this one. Meghan McCain. I have to get this story in there because it's fantastic. Okay. Now, Meghan McCain somehow found a way to make herself the victim of President Trump's attacks against Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, the president's been telling Omar to return to her home country of Somalia if she doesn't like America. And recently, a chant broke out at one of his rallies where they said, "Send her home, send her home." Now, Trump says, "Oh, no, I didn't agree with that." But at the same time, he made absolutely no effort to stop that chant from going on. Now, he also accused her of supporting Al-Qaeda, which, of course, is preposterous. So now, McCain, right? So McCain is a little bit perturbed by this and disturbed. And, of course, we all are. This was a horrible racist attack against a sitting member of Congress. And so, yes, we should all be upset about this. However, McCain, while of course being disturbed because of the racism, was also disturbed for a very different reason. And we're gonna show you that right now. Take a look.
And saw it on TV, and
this one is, I don't know what to say about this one.
look, it was really
it's
dystopian.
crazy. Yeah,
It's not.
it's crazy.
I was trying to go out to dinner and ignore politics. My family's in town, and came home and saw it on Twitter, and then saw it on TV, and.
Okay, so she saw it on TV. She tries to ignore politics, by the way. She not at all interested. She was out to dinner, tried to avoid it, but she just couldn't help but see it on TV. Oh my goodness. These anti-Semitic attacks spoiled my dinner. Oh. Well, you know, it could go to impact Omar's life. But no, let's just worry about Meghan McCain and her inability to forget politics while going out for dinner with her family. Meghan McCain is literally the embodiment of white entitlement. While she has the luxury, of course, being able to avoid politics, people like Omar, who are brown, black, Asian, Native American, etc., they cannot literally get away from the effects of politics, especially from the racists that are emboldened by not only the Democratic Party's weaknesses, but, of course, Donald Trump's rhetoric. But now, of course, she's going to actually go into complain about why she's so upset about Trump's rhetoric. Take a look.
Fire that was my interview on Seth Meyers knows that I've been one of Ilhan Omar's most vocal critics on her policy regarding Israel, regarding some of her comments that I and many others interpreted as anti-Semitic. But the problem right now is you're taking away my agency to criticize her policy because you're making this so much about race, xenophobia, racism. I think anytime you're hitting in a territory where you're telling any American citizen who is of a different color than you are to send them back, I too didn't think this was something that I would see in my country, especially when we're going into 2020. And let me tell you, Republicans right now, we may be in power and have popularity and Trump's numbers may be real high, but let me tell you, it's my generation that's going to answer for this. Try selling conservatism to a younger generation when all they see is this kind of crap on TV.
Oh, feels so bad for Meghan McCain. Oh, I can't sell conservatism to people so that I continue to keep my tax cuts and be richer. I mean, can't do that when all we see is this crap. Oh my God. Is there anything that Meghan McCain will not make about herself? Anything at all? Again, we're talking about horrible attacks against 4 female congresswomen of color and the dangers going along with that rhetoric, because it is dangerous rhetoric. And she's saying, this is making it really hard for me to make my case for conservatism. It's taking away my agency. Oh my God. I can't talk policy. Does Meghan McCain ever talk policy, actual policy? No. Her response to anything that Omar and the rest of the squad talk about is, that's socialism and bad. You're going to end up eating rats like Venezuela. No, she doesn't know anything about policy. Nothing, so spare me. And absolutely ridiculous, man. Now, later on in the segment, she also complained that Rashida Tlaib had suggested that Speaker Nancy Pelosi had encouraged the president by going along with accusations that she and Omar were anti-Semitic. Quote, clearly they're feeling threats from all the way around, said McCain, who repeatedly accused the pair of being anti-Semitic for calling out lobbyist groups for doing what they're supposed to do. Lobby. But she says they're blaming Nancy Pelosi for sort of opening the channels for Trump, and I wish we could all take a collective breath, roll all of this back, and then we could fight about policy on The View all day long. Again, policy? See, here's the thing. What Meghan McCain doesn't understand, and there's a lot she doesn't understand, this isn't about, I disagree with you on this policy. That's not what Republicans and Democrats have been fighting about. No. When it comes to policy positions, corporate Democrats generally agree with Republicans on economic policy. There's not a whole lot of disagreement there. corporations get more money, we lower taxes for companies, and corporate Democrats will throw in a middle class tax cut, right? While saying, "Ooh, no, we're going to have to make a grand bargain to cut Social Security and Medicare." We don't have a choice. We have to do it. Fiscal responsibility. Now, on social issues, of course, Republicans and Democrats are obviously way different. Where Republicans are like, no, we are the party of the white male. That's who we stand for, right? And so, look, they should be more open about it, but I think it's fairly easy to see that's who they represent, right? The wealthy white male. They're the wealthy white male party, right? So it's not fighting about policy. What's going on here is that there are vicious attacks that continue to come from the Republican side over to the Democrats. And the Democrats generally just roll over and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did you call me a socialist?" No, I'm not a socialist. I love free markets. I will do anything you want economically. Yes, tax cuts for the rich. Of course. Just don't call me a socialist. Now you have Democrats that actually fight back. Ilhan Omar, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib. You have progressives that are actually there and that are fighting. And so, of course, what do the Republicans do? They launched some of the worst horrific attacks against their ethnicity, against their religion, in the case of Ilhan Omar, and call them, all sorts of terrible names for calling out the influence of money in politics. Oh, you must be anti-Semitic. No, because literally the person who got us into politics is an old Jewish guy from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. So, again, it's a ridiculous argument, right? But she doesn't understand that. Because, Meghan McCain doesn't understand it. Doesn't get anything, doesn't really care, doesn't really actually dive into nuance or policy at all. Because if you do, you would realize that, yes, Rashida Tlaib is right that Nancy Pelosi did open this door. When Omar was accused of being anti-Semitic for lightly criticizing AIPAC, Nancy Pelosi did not defend Ilhan Omar. Instead, she attacked her and attacked the rest of the squad, even going to the New York Times, Maureen Dowd, and putting out a whole interview where she just trashed progressives. And at the same time, they said, "Ooh, no, you can't go to Twitter and you cannot criticize other Democrats. Even if you completely disagree with them, can't do that in public. Oh, but you can go to the New York Times and you can sit there and complain about progressives." That's bullcrap. Absolute crap. Nancy Pelosi, through her actions, opened the door to attacking these young women. Donald Trump, of course, is going to charge right through it, like a bull in the china shop. Look, Nancy Pelosi is not the resistance. She is the assistance to Donald Trump. And Meghan McCain, well, you know what she is. She just can't help but talk about both herself and her dad. She is the picture of narcissism. And it shows every single day. Okay. I still had so much more to go to, but I don't have time. I got to get to editing crap like that. All right, so thank you guys for joining me around the nation. Love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Patreon.com/TOATNation. Like and share. Please share our videos. Kind of help us try to offset our, not ending up in the recommended feed. That's one way to help. And of course, another way to help is to make sure that you help fund progressive media so that we're not so reliant on advertising revenue. And thank you to all the new patrons and channel members who have stepped up to help us out. You guys are wonderful and amazing. I can't thank you enough. All right. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you tomorrow.